Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, indeed. All right. Here we go. Excellent. Let's get started then, shall we? Hi, folks. Welcome to Changing Minds, the series that uses psychology and neuroscience to gain a better understanding of human behavior. I'm your host, Joe Devlin, and today's topic is how to avoid social isolation while successfully keeping to social distancing. The government's made a strong case for the importance of social distancing from a public health perspective. Flatten the curve to prevent the NHS from being overwhelmed. And in doing that, we save lives. And that makes a ton of sense. And from what I can see, it seems to be working. But I wonder about the psychological costs of social isolation. I mean, there's a reason prisons use social confinement as their harshest punishment. Social isolation can be devastating. With me to discuss what we can do to maintain those critical social interactions is Professor Sophie Scott, Director of the Institute of Cognitive Neuroscience at UCL. Many of you will be familiar with Sophie's work on language, laughter, and communication through her Royal Institution Christmas lectures, her writing for The Guardian, and her wildly popular TED Talk. Welcome to Changing Minds, Sophie.
Hi, Joe.
I'm really pleased you can be here today.
Yes, it's nice to see you.
Yeah, you too. Given that's the topic. I think that would be a really fun place to start, actually. And I wanted to ask you about what your experience with the social distancing measures has been. How are you managing this personally?
That's a good question. I think by trying to make sure I get some exercise, but also make sure that, I mean, I'm here with my family, so I'm not on my own, and we try and sort of have some structure to the day. So we've got clear things that show the evening has started and we're not working anymore and that kind of thing. But also trying to sort of, manage my mood, which exercise is good for, but other sorts of things are good for. So it does sound weird, but it's quite hard work having lots of online meetings for work. But also I do feel like I've been in work. I feel like I've seen people. So, it's been interesting to me, some of the stuff that's actually kind of made a difference to my day.
Yeah, well, that was one of the things I was thinking I would ask about is, I mean, as director of your institute, I assume you must be in contact with people from work a lot. How important is actually speaking with them as opposed to just sort of sharing information via email and things like that?
Well, I'm trying to do a broad spectrum of stuff because obviously you can't stay in touch with everybody. But I'm writing a daily update email on work days, and we have virtual teas. I go to virtual tea. We have virtual cocktail hour called Locktail Hour because we're hilarious, which we've been running while we're on holiday, and that's been nice. So you sort of people, and then we've had formal meetings with the group leaders, and I've also just picked up the phone and called people. So I had one-on-one individual conversations with different people or with my labs. So, it's incredibly hard. It's very, very hard for everybody, but it is worth bearing in mind how much harder this would have been if it was even 10 years ago. And most of these things would have been much, much harder to manage. It would have been, even a multiple phone call would have been quite hard to do for people. So, we have got some things at our disposal that make life slightly easier.
Well, I was going to say, it sounds like you're using various tools, not just email and telephone, but also, I'm assuming, some kind of video conference for the Locktails.
Yes. Yes. The Locktails, we've tried it on Microsoft Teams and we tried it on Zoom, and we're finding Zoom works quite well for that. And yeah, I think Teams has some advantages for meetings because one person can hugely dominate. And sometimes that's really good and sometimes it's really bad.
So is that what you use when you're trying to get in touch with the people from work?
Well, I'm trying to get to a meeting quite quickly, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not alone in this, I think.
And Sophie, what are the advantages, like just psychologically, from having sort of the video component and more than just the spoken word?
This is interesting because it's a literature I've been looking at for a while, and it's one of those findings in science that I just flat out didn't believe when I first came across it. So there's a very interesting study by Robin Dunbar's lab that I was looking at because it included laughter, and I'm interested in laughter. And they were comparing face-to-face conversations, phone conversations, and written interactions, so texts, emails. And they looked at how long people talked for, how happy they were afterwards, and how much they laughed. And what you find is that face-to-face conversation, you talk for longest, you laugh most, and you're happiest afterwards. That all of those drop off for phone conversation, although that's still better than text. And of course, there's a missing value there. You've got no interaction at all when you won't talk at all, you won't laugh at all, you may not feel a deal happier. So certainly the more information you have about the person that you are interacting with beyond just the words that you're using, the better that seems to make the interaction. You do it for longer, you laugh more, you feel better afterwards. But the really striking thing was that this was, this is tree allergy. This is exactly the same for a face-to-face conversation in the room or a face-to-face conversation on a screen. As long as you're both live and you can see and hear each other, you got the same bang for your buck as being in the room with them. And I thought, well, that's obviously wrong because I don't like talking to people on Skype. But I'm, actually, my intuition, you might not find it as enjoyable to talk on Skype as to talk to somebody when you see them, but empirically, you get almost as much of certainly the stuff that by their measures, the same benefits from it. And now that we're in isolation, I've seen the value of that. I do feel like now I have no other options for sort of bumping into people or seeing people at work. If I've had a meeting with people on, and I've seen them and heard them over tea or having a group leaders meeting, then I do feel like I've had that sort of social contact in a way that you don't if you've just had an email.
You mentioned laughter quite a few times in there, which is obviously, I don't know, I guess I wouldn't think of it as traditionally part of communication. I think of more in terms of speech, right? But I know that's a narrow view. How important is that as laughter as part of our communication channel?
It's very interesting. I think it's primarily a form of sort of social emotional communication. So I'm very sorry, I'm just going to have to do this. Hector, please turn it down. Sorry. Thank you. Sorry, I'm competing with Doctor Who and I'm losing. It's
a tough competition.
It's just got BritBox. It's got the entirety of the back catalogue. And my son is on a deep dive. Sure. So when I first started working on laughter, I never set out to look at laughter. I was looking at emotion in the voice. And I started looking at more positive emotions. And one of the ones I looked at was something everyone called amusement. And that's what I studied. And I thought, well, laughter, that's what you do when you're amused. And Robert Provine had been writing about laughter for years, and he just kept saying, it's a social behaviour, it's a social behaviour. And at first I thought, that's ridiculous, it's about humour. And actually, although, I was completely conforming to what Robert Provine has found. If you ask people what makes you laugh, they talk about comedy and humour. If you look at people and you look at when they laugh primarily entirely as a social behaviour. So he found you're 30 times more likely to laugh if there's somebody else with you than if you're on your own. And within those interactions, because that's basically what it means, is most laughter happens when you're in an interaction with somebody else. That mostly means conversations. You're still often not laughing at jokes and comedy. You don't laugh at punchlines. You're laughing to show you agree, you understand, you get an illusion someone's made, you remember the same event. You can be laughing just to sort of maintain social bonds. Most of what's happening in conversational laughter is us dropping into a non-verbal emotional expression to do a lot of the social and emotional communication that we do in interactions. So it's a really interesting emotional expression because it only really lives in social interactions, and it's got a very, very complex, very nuanced role within that.
So the fact that we do have these kind of video conferencing tools now that for instance, 10 years ago were really primitive or not existent, is actually really important for trying to, break some of that isolation by maintaining these nonverbals as well as the verbals.
I think so. And I know I'm slightly obsessed with laughter, but I think I think that starts to get to why it feeds into why it's even good to be doing it in the first place. So, you can study language as a way of communicating ideas and messages. And of course it is a great way of communicating ideas and messages. But it's always a social interaction. For the vast majority of people on Earth, talking to each other remains our dominant mode for social interactions. And it's not important just because we're firing the messages. It's important because of that social contact that it gives you. So the very plausible case has been made that our main way of knowing our social network is who we talk to. It feels so obvious we don't even really think about it. But we're social primates, so if who we talk to is what determines our social network, then it's unbelievably important for us to be engaged with that, because it's not that the social isolation is taking us away from people, that it's taking us away from our network and our place in that. And we need that. We need to know where we are. And all the other things that start to feed into that. So Robin Dunbar's argued that you get the same kind of endorphin kick from talking to each other that other primates get from grooming each other, because it is enjoyable. And it's also good for us in terms of maintaining the social skills we need to use to talk to each other. So there's quite interesting prospective data showing that you can, if you look at people who are being more and more isolated, you start to get a decline in things like empathy. And the loneliness comes before the decline in empathy. And what this suggests is that talking to each other is the kind of the engine for us to practice a lot of our social skills that are really important social skills. Caring about other people really matters. I was just looking at Twitter and someone saying on Twitter, has anyone else noticed that the more that you get socially isolated, the more you don't care about what, sort of, anybody trying to talk to you? And that's the mechanism in action. So it's not just that you are benefiting from being able to share contact with people. That contact actually is the social network that really matters to you. And the actions of interacting with people are an opportunity to sort of polish up and remain skilled at the social aspects that then mean it's easy for you to talk to each other. And also, if you look at one of the really interesting ways that people use laughter in conversation, they will very frequently use it to actually manage emotional states. So there's a very interesting literature from Robert Levinson's lab in the US and a few other labs that have started to look at this in more detail, showing that if you look at couples, and I suspect that this applies to what more widely sort of friendships, but if you look at couples in stressful situations, they get stressed out, and physiologically you see them getting stressed out. The couples that deal with this with what he calls positive affect, but it's mostly things like smiles and laughter, not only get less stressed, they're the happier couples and they stay together for longer. And it only works if both people laugh. It's not because laughter just makes everything okay. If you can negotiate laughter together, then that is what will get you out of that stressful situation. And in fact, that's a very common way that we use laughter to actually deal with stress and to negotiate a way of sort of regulating emotions in a positive direction. And you feel better for it and you feel less stressed. And it is important to bear in mind there are lots of other ways you can regulate emotions. You can regulate emotions with aggression. You can regulate emotions with sort of closing everything down, like passive aggression. And Robert Levinson's looked at that, and there are people that do that. You tend to still feel stressed. So laughter is very effective because it's something that naturally occurs in conversations. Well, naturally can sort of be can grow in conversations, but actually, perhaps with someone you have a closer emotional connection to, it's a really effective way of improving your mood by sharing it. Again, so it's like the conversation. It's not just that you're blasting messages at each other. You actually use it together, and that's where the value really lies.
Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. Given the importance of laughter in that kind of social bonding, I'm sensitive that there are other species, right, that are social species. Do other species laugh?
There's so few studies on this. It's actually hilarious. I would laugh if I wasn't trying to get money to research it, but there are a handful of studies. Normally, it's something that's found by accident, but as far as we can see, there are lots of other examples of other animals that laugh, particularly mammals. So other apes laugh, and Charles Darwin wrote a lot about this. So other apes, it's really obvious when they're laughing because it looks and it sounds a lot like human laughter. But Panksepp in the US, who did a lot of work with rats, he had a very plausible case for a joyful vocalization that the rats make when they're being tickled or they're playing. That seems to be associated. It fits all the criteria for what we think of as laughter. So probably there is more laughter out there in mammals. It's just that no one's really been looking at, no one's really been looking for it.
So it's not that it's unique to us then. It's just the language side of the social interactions.
Exactly. And if you look at how chimpanzees laugh, they're not, chimpanzees, if anything, they have quite complex interactions. They tend to do more sort of signing than vocal interactions, but they do laugh, and they laugh very like us. So just like us, they laugh differently if they're being tickled, like a helpless laughter, than if they're laughing to make play last longer, which is exactly like our conversational laughter, being used entirely for a social purpose. And it sounds different and it's used differently. So it's sort of amazing how complex laughter can be. Well, even actually in rats, there was a fantastic study with, because you can do studies with rats you couldn't do with humans, but there was a study showing in the US that if you devocalize a rat so it can't make a call, they get on with all the other rats. The rats are very playful. The other rats will play with the devocalized rats, but the devocalized rats are more likely to get bitten because they can't laugh.
Oh.
And therefore they can't show they're playing.
Oh.
And it's more likely that the play will escalate into something that stops being play because you can't make the sound that shows what your intentions are. So even in rats, laugh is incredibly complex. So you you kind of start to open up a bit of a hall of mirrors of how complex laughter might be for all mammals.
That's amazing. I had no idea that it could be that sophisticated in rats, which I don't.
Yes.
Would have guessed, really. So in that vein, then, I mean, we're obviously in a situation where social distancing is here for, who knows how long at this point. What are the kind of things that we should best be doing to sort of support social interactions and de-stress and?
Well, I think probably whatever you can do. So any contact is better than no contact. So that Robin Dunbar study, I said the lowest amount of benefit was coming from written interactions, but that's still better than nothing. And phoning someone is still going to be better than not phoning them. And if you can have face-to-face interactions, if you can do FaceTime, if you can do Zoom, particularly with people who really are on their own. So my mum's on her own and is old enough to be socially isolated in a very kind of severe way. So I'm bringing her every day on FaceTime so we can see her and just have a chat. Even it doesn't matter what it is you talk about. It really, it's not that it matters that you're going to be sitting down and talking about Greek philosophy, the most ridiculous gossip, some silly story. What matters is that you're talking. That really is it. So I'd take it seriously and make time to do it, both for your benefit and for the benefit of the people that you're talking to. And I think for laughter, the same kind of rule applies. It's worth taking your laughter seriously. It's not the trivial part of your day, the silly things. Actually, the really important emotional lifting, particularly in close emotional relationships, is coming from the times when you can share laughter together. So let there be space. I mean, when the lockdown first started, and my partner and I watched the entirety of the TV sitcom Porridge, just because it's comforting, it's familiar from childhood, and it makes us both laugh. And we can just go straight to that, and we will enjoy this together. So, don't deny yourself things that might feel trivial, because actually that's where a lot of the really important stuff can happen.
So presumably that's one of the things that's really valuable for like teams. I mean, a lot of us who are, working at home are part of groups at work or, whatever. And, in normal circumstances, in my group, for instance, we go out to lunch a lot. And it's not work, that part, but it is a good social bonding.
Yeah.
Should we still be doing those kind of activities like your locktails?
I think so. So I'm meeting my lab for coffee tomorrow morning because we missed our lab meeting because it was Easter. So and that kind of thing that feels silly because you've got to sort of schedule it, you're not actually going to meet, but actually that same kind of informality, right? Well, let's just meet tomorrow at 11, grab a cup of coffee, and it doesn't matter, we'll be doing it virtually. We'll bring our coffee and we'll come and have a chat, because it can't all be in formal meetings. And it's impossible to expect the sort of serendipity of normal bumping into each other to be able to happen when we're all working from home, but you can at least make the space where some of just the chit chat can happen, just the gossip. And gossip and chit chat sounds like, again, sounds very trivial, very pointless, but actually it's completely confirming and establishing your social contacts and your place in that network. So who will gossip with you, who you would gossip with, is actually really important. So it matters. If that was something you'd normally let happen, then let that happen.
Well, there's a sense in a sort of very prescriptive industrial psychology perspective that, when people are at the water coolers or whatever and chit-chatting, they're not working. And recently, I feel like in the last 5-6 years, that perspective has changed a lot, and there's a Harvard Business Review where they said, measuring those social interactions is actually a really good indicator of teams and team effectiveness.
Yeah.
And now I sort of understand where they're coming from, because it was counterintuitive when I first read it.
Yeah, it sounds like they're wasting time, but actually if you need people to be able to work together, to be able to understand where everybody's coming from, and to feel like a coherent unit, then that is exactly chit chat and gossip and laughter is exactly the kind of thing you would want to be happening, not continuously throughout the day, but at the points when you do get to take a break. And that's what I mean about taking it seriously. Leave the space in your day where those things can happen, where laughter and chit chat can live, because it's probably as important to your social interactions and to your group as sleep is to the rest of your day. You know, it really, really matters.
And that is really remarkable. Fantastic. Hey, if it's okay with you, I'd love to turn to some of the questions from the audience. Is that all right?
Absolutely. Yeah, no problem at all.
Okay. Well, the first one that I spotted here is a good one, I think. Someone has said, why do I need to speak with people when I have Facebook and other social media for confirming my social interactions?
Well, like I say, that is certainly much better than nothing, and it is great. And you do get, you know, that sense of someone commenting on your post on Facebook. I was looking at someone just trying to make me laugh on Facebook before this started. You get a little bit of bang, you know, that is a good confirmatory feeling that you get some of that sense of the social contact. The more the merrier, though. It really is linear. So the more you can add in, being able to hear someone, being able to see them as well as hear them, that will all give you more benefits. You will be happier. You will talk for long. The interaction will last longer. You will laugh more. And so it's not that I would never say don't bother with Facebook or something, because it's a little bit doesn't count. Well, it will all count, but the more the merrier.
Wonderful. So it does sort of enhance those kind of social.
It's absolutely, it's additive. Yeah.
Perfect. So let's see. There's another question here from Jake asking, what happens in the brain when we hear a bad joke versus a good joke versus normal just speech?
I really wish I could give you a better answer to this. I think one of the things that's quite interesting, and I know people will probably legitimately get quite cross at me for saying this, but if you look at the humour literature, there are quite a lot of studies looking at brains areas that are recruited when you listen to jokes. And what looks, coming to this as a language person, it's the language network. When you hear a joke, it activates the parts of your brain that care about language, because that's what, there isn't anything else. And it's like jokes are more about your appraisal of the intention of the person and the novelty and the cleverness. It's not that there's something in there that is completely different from all other language, other than you'd be expected to laugh. And what is harder to find, what you start to find, if something does seem to come in that's beyond the language network, it starts to look like it's because then it's laughter. You are either suppressing laughter or letting laughter happen. There isn't anything else magic in there about humour.
I suspect, like everybody, I've got some friends who are those blokes down the pub who can do 10 million jokes, and I struggle to remember any. Do they have any particular sort of social advantage to being able to do that?
No. And I think the thing that's interesting about humour is, as laughter it's phenomenally lawful. It even seems to be similar in humans and rats and apes. As soon as you get to, so that's laughter. As soon as you get to humour, that's something you only find in humans. I have never seen an example of some non-physical thing that leads to laughter in other animals. So watching something and finding it funny doesn't seem to happen to other animals. But beyond that, the only thing that's truly like lawful about humour to humans, well, two probably things. As far as we can see, humans have always been trying to be funny. As far back as you can go in the written record, you find examples of jokes and graffiti and things trying to be amusing. But also, you find there is no one thing that over time and over place is always funny to everybody. So there's always a massive personal contribution to what you find funny. Once we get beyond the really basic stuff about laughter, so things that exist in the world to make you fun to laugh, none of them will work on everybody. Even slapstick, which is probably the most common form of humour in terms of like the most you can find, it sort of has a great generalizability. You'll find someone who doesn't laugh. And that's because they'll be thinking something like, well, that's not funny, she probably hurt her neck or something. And that's because everyone, it's more like an aesthetic appreciation, in the same way we don't all like the same music or the same books. We don't all find the same things funny.
Andrew has a really good question that's sort of a perfect follow-up to that. He says, there seems to be a great deal of humor arising out of the situation we're in. TikTok videos, memes, etc. Families making videos together, banter back and forwards on Twitter. Is there a model for why this seems to be more common in adversity and stress?
There is some work on this in high stress professions. So if you look at how humour is used in jobs that are stressful and where people need to work as a team. So if you look at the police, medical professionals, nurses, I don't know about teachers, fire service, they tend to have within each of those professions quite strong traditions of extremely dark humour. And that seems to do several things all at the same time. So first of all, it gives people a reason to laugh and to bond. So it's increasing the strength of the team. It's helping them deal with the stress. And part of the darkness of the humour is part of that. You're kind of taking the thing and laughing at it that is stressful about your job. And the other thing that it does is it's actually keeping people out who are not part of your world. Like, it can be shockingly dark sometimes, this dark humour. And if you're not part of that world, you don't get the joke and you're not meant to. But I think in the kernel of that, in the first two, the bonding and the dealing with the stress by turning something around and laughing at it, that's basically going back to this way that we will use laughter to deal with stressful situations and find a sort of negotiate a more positive mood somehow together through it. And again, that only works. It only works if you find it funny. It only works if everybody laughs. But it's very efficient when it does work. So I think that's probably one of the reasons why there has been this kind of flourishing, because actually it's like a stressful situation where people are all in the same boat together. It's a sort of perfect storm for people to try and use laughter and humour as a way of negotiating a better mood in that difficult situation.
That resonates really well. I mean, my eldest daughter is a doctor in the NHS at the moment, and I've heard her with her friends telling these stories that they all laugh at, that I just sort of sit and think, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's absolutely shocking, but it's meant to be. It's meant to get, and you find that, teenagers' humour is always like kind of built, almost designed to be something that makes adults go, oh my goodness me, but that's because it's meant to be. It's identity, it's a group thing. So that's happening all the time, but it's very noticeable, and it's probably most effective when you need to deal with stress.
We've had another question here that was that's fascinating to me. Someone said, I've lost my drive to interact with others. Will I be back to being my sociable self, or will social distancing maybe have more long-term effect on me?
So I would say it's much more fluid than we give it credit for, and the fluidity can work in both directions. So these longitudinal studies looking at people who've been isolated find that the loneliness comes before a declination in things like empathy. So it's like the social contact lets you practice these skills that make you good at social contact. So if you are removed from it, it will, unless you go to lengths to force yourself into situations where you have to talk to people, it will be difficult. That won't naturally maintain, and it will be changing. The thing to do would be I would say, try and keep an eye on it, and if you can find a way of having different kinds of interactions, even just friendly interactions on social media, that's better than nothing. So some kind of contact with people, and it's fluid. It can be fluid in going in the positive direction as well. When we are about allowed back out, make sure that you do, because personality feels fixed and stable, but it's not. There was quite an interesting study looking at like the basic big 5 personality traits and looking how much you could change them. So they took people who scored high on introversion and made them do extrovert things, and lo and behold, they become more extrovert. And it doesn't work for everything. It doesn't work for agreeability. You can't make someone more agreeable, but it does suggest that these things are affected by our circumstances, but the effect can go in both directions. You could get more isolated because of what happens to you through loneliness, or you can also become more outgoing because of things you make yourself do, either difficult, not easily while we're under isolation situation, but also when we're not, by making yourself do things that would take you out there and interact with people, you will get better at doing it.
Well, that's certainly encouraging. I mean, one of the things that I'm constantly amazed at is how plastic we are. You know, a lot of the things that we've taken as this is, you are this type of a person, or your brain is this,
Yeah.
you know, it just turns out to be not true. And the more we learn, the more, you know, we probably recognize what you would have known if we hadn't looked at it through such a microscopic lens
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating topic. Well, I'm also sensitive to the fact that we're running out of time, and, you know, my apologies if I didn't get to all of your questions. Hopefully we'll get you on next time and get some more questions. So for the moment, I'd like to thank my guest, Sophie Scott, as well as our audience members for sharing their questions. We're back next Monday at the normal time, and our guest will be Dr. Lizana Harris, who will be talking about the effects of social distancing on how we perceive other human beings, which is a really natural follow-up from today's conversation. So please do join us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Awesome.